All things Mavs.
And they'll reset. Nowitzki again for the lead. Bang!
What's going on, Maverick fans? Welcome in to the All Things Mavs podcast. Again, I am your host, Jimmy Crowther, breaking down anything, everything, and all things Mavs. And today I kind of want to get into 5 guys that have to step up / are going to be X factors for the Mavs in the 2019 to make a push for the playoffs next season. And if you follow me on Twitter, if you follow Chat Sports, if you're subscribed to Chat Sports, where I am currently the on-air NBA host, then you already know that I did a video on this. I broke down 5 players that got to step up. They have to be X factors if the Mavs want to make the playoffs in 2020. And, you know, on Chat Sports, I do a lot more broad stuff. I do more just NBA in general. And so when I get to do my Mavs videos, I keep them short and sweet, 10 to 15 minutes per video. But because this is my own podcast, I'm going to elaborate on everything, kind of talk a little bit more in depth, maybe give a few more guys that I think could be X factors, and just get into it. Because the stuff that I've been doing on these podcasts, obviously I'm only doing one a week right now, but the stuff that I've been doing, you guys have just been so awesome about listening, interacting, sharing it. And it helps me a ton when you retweet whenever I post out the podcast, or even post a link yourself on one of your Twitters and tag me in it. That helps so much with the distribution, and I get more and more listens every single time. Obviously, I'm only doing one a week for now. We're coming down to the end of the summer for me, and I'm working 5 days a week at Chat Sports. And when I'm not working, I don't really want to just sit at home and talk more about sports, because I'm talking about sports 5 days a week. So on the weekends, I'm going to try to get a pod out. But here's the thing. In like 2 weeks, 2 weeks, I'm headed back up to Stillwater, Oklahoma, my senior year up at OSU. And I only have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to be sitting around on my butt, thinking about the Mavs, and instead of just thinking about them, I'm going to start talking about them here on the podcast. So I'm going to give you guys at least 3 podcasts a week once I get back up to Stillwater, and maybe even just go for the full 5 days. Why not? Might as well. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the 5 guys that need to step up. And the number one guy that I wanted to focus on was Jalen Brunson. Obviously, Jalen Brunson had an amazing second half of the season. And look, when I say second half of the season, I just mean like post-All-Star break, because that's, basically seems like the halfway point, even though it's not. He started 22 of the 24 games after the All-Star break, which is just insane. Obviously, a lot of that had to do with the fact that we traded Dennis Smith Jr., may he rest in peace. J.J. Barea tore his Achilles. And really our only other guards on the roster were Devin Harris, who, by the way, I wonder what he's doing, if he's going to be a coach next year or what's going to happen. Maybe by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have some news. We got Trey Burke, who wasn't really playing any real minutes for Dallas. By the way, great pickup there for Philadelphia. And, Daryl Macon was on a 2-way. Those were the only 3 guys that could really technically play the point guard position, plus Jalen, and Jalen Brunson. So, obviously, he was going to get some run. But when he did, he was ridiculously efficient. He had a great second half of that year. Look, I put the points up. I put the comparison up on my video on Chat Sports. But, just listen to this. 6.8 points per game before the All-Star break. 14.5 points per game after the All-Star break. 2 rebounds up to 2.9. Didn't, obviously as a point guard, you don't really expect a big jump there. Assists went from 2.4 to 4.6. So nearly doubled his assist numbers. 3-point percentage took a little bit of a jump, 34% to 35%. And his minutes per game, he's playing 11 more minutes per game. So obviously he's going to score more. But the stuff that we saw out of Jalen Brunson in the second half of the year was just incredible. And we need that post-All-Star break version of Jalen Brunson every single night when we're making a push for the playoffs next year. Because I truly believe we will be. But here's the thing with Jalen Brunson. I love him as a starter. But with what we have this coming year, coming off the bench is going to be so much better for him and so much better for the Mavs. And this is why. Because he gets the freedom to run the offense. Let's think about it. If he's in that starting unit and he's running with the starters all game long, it's Luka Doncic's show. he's going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to be making the plays. He's going to be doing all that. And Jalen Brunson's going to have to play off the ball. Now, I'm not saying Jalen Brunson can't play off the ball, but he's way more effective when he's got the ball in his hands. And as a starting point guard, or as a point guard in the backup with the second unit, he's going to thrive. Plus, he's a good defender. Like, he's fine for his size, but he's no DeLon Wright. Like, DeLon Wright is our defensive-minded point guard who doesn't need the ball in his hands and is going to fit Luka way better in that second unit. So, I'm expecting pretty similar numbers from Jalen Brunson this next year, but I think his minutes are going to take a dip. I mean, he's not going to play. I'm talking about compared to his post-All-Star break. He's not going to be playing 29 minutes per game. I don't think. I think he'd be closer to 21, 20, 22, somewhere around that range. And I think that's perfect. I think his points per game, obviously, will take a little bit of a dip, but I still think it hovers around 14 points. Assists, I think they need to go up. Like, if he's playing with guys like Seth Curry and, whoever else off the bench, like Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe it's JJ Barea. I mean, Justin Jackson, Maxi Kleber, maybe Boban's in there sometimes. I think his assist numbers should be closer to six per game. I think that'd be perfect for Jalen Brunson. So I'm excited to see what he does. This is not a kind of guy, this is not a rookie that's going to hit a sophomore slump because he was like an experienced rookie. And those experienced rookies don't often get in those slumps like some of the young freshman guys coming in. This is a guy that excelled at Villanova. Another guy that definitely needs to step up. It's Tim Hardaway Jr. And I have said this on the podcast before. I'll say it again because I think obviously it's super relevant talking about him. The guy's getting too much money, but he's going to be so good in a six-man role if he commits to it and the Mavericks commit to it. If he says, hey, Mavs, hey, Rick, I'm getting paid way too much to sit on the bench to start these games. I need to be in that starting lineup. If he says that, if he comes in, then he is going to just take a dip. Like, his efficiency is going to take a dip. 3-point percentage is going to take a dip. Everything is going to take a huge hit, and it's not going to be good for the Mavs. I think how he could work in this system is as a six-man. And it would be so perfect. I guess that's another guy in the second unit I didn't mention with Jalen Brunson. If he's passing to Tim Hardaway, who just spots up and knocks down a three, or he can get to the basket too pretty well, then we'll be in good shape. I mean, what he did last year, look, he only played 19 games? Yeah, 19 games with the Mavs because of injury and obviously coming over from New York. 15.5 points per game. And if you saw that, you're like, wow, okay, yeah, that guy needs to be a starter. No, because the 3-point percentage in Dallas was 32%. The field goal percentage, 40%. So, not great. But when you look at what he did in that 1 year with New York where they were actually good, back in 2014, 2015, he kind of embraced that role off the bench, and it was only 12 points per game. 3-point percentage was up a little bit, 34%. That was pretty good. But then when he got to New York 2017, 2018, 17.5 points per game. That's like great, but these 3-point percentages just keep taking hits. And he doesn't need to be shooting the three-pointer, 7 times per game? Yeah, he attempted 7 3-pointers in New York, and then 7 3-pointers while he was in Dallas. Per game. It's too much, So if he can learn to take that six-man role seriously, to come off the bench and be a spark. Now, he's not going to live up to that contract, but he's going to absolutely be a key piece in this rotation. And if nothing else, he plays himself into a nice trade chip for the Mavs. And that would be perfect. I think that's what he needs to do. I compared him to Jason Terry on my last video for Chat Sports. And, nobody's ever going to be Jet again on the Mavs. But let's remember, Tim Hardaway Jr. is 27. It's not like he's some old dude that, is just going to, like a Jamal Crawford that's just going to chuck up everything. He is 27 years old. He's got some room to grow with this organization if he wants to continue to play here and if the Mavs don't look to trade him. And in order to do that, he's got to embrace that six-man role. So I pulled up Jason Terry's stats. And 07-08 was that first year that Jet became kind of Dallas' sixth man. He put up 15.5 points per game, and he shot 37.5% from three. If Tim Hardaway Jr. can do exactly that, if he can put up 15 and shoot about 38% from three, we're going to be nice. That second unit is going to be hard to beat. Like, think about it. You got Jalen Brunson, Seth Curry, Tim Hardaway Jr., Justin Jackson, or / Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber. That's pretty solid. A little undersized, but maybe you bring in Boban sometimes. Maybe it's not, just that. It's obviously not going to be that five running together every single night, but I like that second unit a lot if Tim Hardaway Jr. can just embrace the role as a sixth man in Dallas, and I think we're going to be just fine. Now, another guy that I think a lot of people want to be a part of the second unit, but I don't think he will be, is Dwight Powell. And the reason I have him as an X factor is because he's expected to be a starter. And when you're expected to be a starter, you got to do some better things, Like, you got to do things better. And this is another guy, like Jalen Brunson, that stepped up after the All-Star break. Because after the All-Star break, this was like a whole nother monster. And I think Dwight Powell has done that a lot, in his years in Dallas since coming over from Boston. Of course, the infamous Dwight Powell trade. And now it's time to show that what you do in that January-February month, the January-February months, you can do that every single night. You can do that all year long, not just for a 2-month stretch. Like, we need post-All-Star Dwight Powell all year long. And if he is, then he deserves to be our starting center. There should be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I guess, we talk about Porzingis and Dwight Powell starting in the same front court, and it's like, well, yeah, but isn't Porzingis going to technically be the center? I think Porzingis plays a center. He'll defend more of the centers in the NBA. Like, when we're going up against bigger guys or whatever it may be, he will be our defensive center. Dwight Powell will be our offensive center, if that makes sense. Like, on offense, Dwight Powell is going to be the rim rolling 5, and Porzingis will be that 4. So let's kind of focus on what Dwight Powell, like exactly what makes Dwight Powell so good post All-Star break, because the numbers just speak for themselves. 8 points per game up to 15 points per game. 4 rebounds up to 8 rebounds. Excuse me. 1 assist up to 3 assists, which actually surprised me. Even 3 assists from your center is going to be good. I don't expect him, he's good. What he does, I think the way he gets his assists, of what I've noticed, is like when he gets the ball down in the post, he's like not afraid to kick it out. And that's going to be good, especially when you have a 3-point shooter like Seth Curry or Kristaps Porzingis, or maybe Luka becomes a little bit more consistent, Then that's great. And here's where the really weird thing comes about. His 3-point percentage, and I know because I watched every single game and I was on Twitter during every single game, everybody whines and cries, including me, when Dwight Powell shoots the 3. Because he doesn't need to be shooting 3s, but post All-Star break, Dwight Powell can shoot all the 3s he wants. Because he went from, so follow me here, before the All-Star break, which is obviously a bigger chunk of the season, 24% from 3. 24.3%, okay? You're like, all right, Jimmy, this guy doesn't need to be shooting 3s. No, you're right. 3-point percentage after the All-Star break, 39.6%. He was basically a 40% 3-point shooter, which is, top of the NBA. If you're in the 40% range, you're top of the NBA. Now, I know it's less games, but you got to remember he was playing way more after the All-Star break. Again, this is without DeAndre Jordan there. Without, Porzingis is obviously not playing. So him and Maxi Kleber and Salah Mejri were like their only 3 true big men, and Dirk, of course. 30.7 minutes per game compared to 17.5 minutes per game. So if that 3-point percentage is happening all year long, along with everything else that he did, like, that's going to be incredible. If we get a true stretch 5 in Dwight Powell, that's 4 guys on the court. Well, I guess, 4 guys on the court in the starting 5 that can easily knock down a 3-pointer. Dwight Powell, Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic, and then Justin Jackson, or if it's Finney-Smith, or if some nights it's Jalen Brunson, Seth Curry. Now, DeLon Wright, he's the big question mark when it comes to 3s, because he's okay in the catch and shoot, but just regular 3s, he has not been proven consistent in that whatsoever. So Dwight Powell is kind of my other guy that I have to talk about in that situation, but his counterpart, Maxi Kleber, is another one. Because the thing with Maxi is that we know his defensive ability is great. Like, he's always going to block shots. He's always going to hustle to keep anyone away from getting to the rim that he can. But the question with Maxi is, are you going to be consistent offensively? Because we saw stretches where Maxi Kleber looked like he could not be on the floor in offensive possessions. He's an okay rim roller. I think he needs to be better about that rim roll play. And the 35% from three isn't bad. But again, this is a guy that needs to be a stretch 5/stretch 4 on a consistent basis. And 35% is good, but I would like to see it get closer to 38 or 39. We know what he can do defensively. Among our block leaders who were there all season, so I'm not counting DeAndre Jordan here, Dorian FinneySmith, 36 blocks, total blocks. Dwight Powell, had 50 blocks. Maxi Kleber had the most blocks on the team by a large margin, 78. So if Maxi can do that again with the blocking, ability, the rim protection ability of Kristaps Porzingis, I think Maxi Kleber could be our crunch time big man, our crunch time center. Maybe he's in there instead of Dwight Powell because of his defensive ability and shooting is a little bit more consistent than Powell. I think he starts the game off the bench, and he could be one of those closers for sure. Obviously, we all love Maxi. He came back on a very team-friendly deal, and we're super excited about that. Now, can he show us that he can consistently play offense? Because that's going to be a huge deal for the Dallas Mavericks. So, last guy that I had in my video that I want to touch on here was another guy that re-signed, Dorian FinneySmith. I have been on Dorian FinneySmith Island since the Summer League games where he showed that he should get an NBA contract. And I continue to stand on that island because it's not really an island anymore. I guess people actually really like Dorian FinneySmith. But, here's the thing with Dodo. He's a good defensive player when his offense is going well. But when his offense starts to slip and it starts to decline, he gets really down on himself and his motivation to play defense takes a huge hit. And we cannot be having that. We can't have a guy who's only locked in when he's playing well. We need a guy locked in on defense all the time. Because if Finney-Smith starts, or if he comes in off the bench, which I think he comes off the bench most nights, he's got to be great defensively. Because on the wing, our perimeter defense is not our strong suit. DeLon Wright's are probably one of our top, or is our top perimeter defender. Justin Jackson is good, but Dorian Finney-Smith is better defensively. It's just going to come down to how consistent can he stay on the offensive end to keep himself locked in on the defensive end. Another thing with Dorian Finney-Smith, that beginning of the season, his three-point percentage or his three-point shot was falling. It looked so good. It looked like he'd been working on it over the summer. We heard that he was, and he stepped up and showed that he did. But then it just continued to decline. He finished the season shooting 31% from three. We cannot have that. We got to have 35% from three, Dorian Finney-Smith. I think he's going to play most nights. I think he needs to play most nights. He's a high-energy guy. He can play small ball 4, and he can obviously play the forward position. Defensively, he's a dog. Offensively, you don't always know what you're going to get out of him, and it can be a huge question mark for the Mavs sometimes, and that can't happen if the Mavs want to make the playoffs. Dorian Finney-Smith has got to be our defensive stopper off the bench 100% of the time. So in that video, I kind of focused on the guys that had already been here for the Mavs, and that kind of come with some question marks, like Jalen Brunson. Only question, the question mark I have for him is, are we going to get post All-Star break Jalen Brunson? Is he going to be able to, coming off the bench, is he going to be able to consistently play that role that he played as a starter? With Tim Hardaway Jr., is he going to buy into the six-man role, or is he going to whine and complain, even though it doesn't seem like him to me? Is he going to be able to step into that six-man role and embrace it 100%, be more efficient? With Dwight Powell, is he going to be a stretch 5, or is he just going to be a lob threat all the time? Which, that's great. We need the lob threat. I'm not saying that has to go away. I'm just saying I want both versions. I want a stretch 5, and I want a rim roller in Dwight Powell, which ironically is also Kristaps Porzingis times a million. Maxi Kleber, is he going to be able to hit a 3 consistently? Is his offense going to continue to be consistent? Because we know what we're getting defensively. His offense is going to be the question mark. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, question marks with him. Is he going to stay locked in on both sides of the ball when one side of the ball isn't as good as the other, if that makes sense? So that's my question mark with those guys. Another X factor that I could have thrown in here, probably DeLon Wright, but I don't want to put him in here as much because we kind of know what we're going to get with him. Like, we know he's going to be a good perimeter defender. I guess if you want one big question mark with him, is he going to develop a three-point shot? Is it going to, not really even develop, but is he going to get back to that Toronto Raptor three-point shooter? Because he was a little bit better there, not a ton, but catch and shoot DeLon Wright is good. Justin Jackson's another guy that I probably could have thrown in because we saw a lot of Justin Jackson near the end of the year, and his three-point shot didn't look as good as I expected it to, but I think it'll get there. I trust that he'll be pretty solid and consistent from 3, especially when he's had a whole summer to work out with the team and really be a part of this team. I expect big things out of Justin Jackson. So those are my question marks with those guys. Obviously, or those are, the X factors that really got to step up for Dallas if they want to make a push for the playoffs. I'm not going to say Luka Doncic. We know what we're getting out of him. I'm not saying Porzingis, even though his health is going to be the biggest X factor of them all. Outside of that, it's like these guys, and you can say Seth Curry, but again, we know what we're going to get out of him. We know he's going to make a 3. We know he's going to be a knockdown three-point shooter. So that's my take on all that. Let me know, on Twitter, on Apple Podcast, in the comment section on YouTube, what you guys think, what else you want to hear out of me, if you want some more segment ideas. If you have some more segment ideas, throw them at me, and I'll be happy to listen, happy to talk about anything and everything you guys want to hear about our Dallas Mavericks.